If I had a coin for every politic that blamed video games on atrocities, I would be a very wealthy man, to put it light. Video games are the most profitable market out there, mostly for the wrong reasons, but that's another video. But this is this video. Wonderful, isn't it? Unscripted much? However, I've only seen this issue regarding an actual problem with the video game industry once on mainstream news. Today we are talking about violent video games and politics, because obviously it just gets really annoying, doesn't it? If violent video games are being blamed for atrocities, why aren't movies or TV being blamed as much? Many films are much more violent than the video games I've seen. Same goes for TV. Many say it's because the government can't enforce tax on them directly or influence them. I could be wrong, but then again I'm sticking to that theory because it's been brought up numerous times. But let's get started with when the trend began. In the 1990s, video games peaked and were much more graphic than games before, bringing us to Doom in 1993 and the original Mortal Kombat. Both games were heavily violent for the times, causing concern for parents whose children may have gotten their hands on these games. In response, the ESRB was established to give all games an age rating, which allowed Doom and similar titles to be given the 18+ or mature rating in the US. So with a system in place, the video games were properly regulated in terms of letting people know who should be playing these games and who shouldn't. Throughout the age of video games, there was always the connection of video games and politics at constant arguing. But something happened in 1999, adding the biggest pile of wood to the fire.
Are you serious?
Of course, talking about the Columbine shooting, perhaps the most infamous one out there. I won't go too in detail, because this can be disturbing, and it caused so much panic and debate over safety, gun control, and God knows what else. Video games were definitely brought up as the criminals involved often created levels in Doom, Doom 2, and Quake. The main man, Eric Harris, even wrote the massacre would be like playing Doom in his journal. Wow. However, there were more causes than video games. Depression and bullying, many psychological problems plagued these people, believing that they should go on this suicide mission. It's really scary how someone can devolve to such a violent state. Let's get back on track though, because we really need to get back on track. The 2000s would be where politics would attack video games, especially in the US. Doom was rightfully blamed for Columbine, and I will agree that this was one instance where video games were a factor. Keyword, factor. I will bring it up later. One thing I have noticed though while doing research is that any game brought forward as violent is an 18+ or mature rated game. So why are parents worried about them? Why are teens shooting up schools in horrific acts? Why are these games being targeted when the people who play them shouldn't be in the first place? As parents, you need to supervise your kids with any form of media, including video games. When I was in school, nearly everyone had Call of Duty and GTA, and they were below the age of 10. They always played games outside involving guns, and in the later years we just started playing football like a normal kid. I didn't have any of these games like this because my parents weren't comfortable with me having them. Back then I was into all sorts of things, most kids are usually into the Transformers, Doctor Who and Star Wars back here and back then. My simple message for parents is that if a game is too violent, it most likely was not meant for your kid. We have age ratings for a reason. You can't complain if you not only buy, but allow your kids to play something like Call of Duty. You are to blame here. The game wasn't intended for kids or some teens. What about the politics side though? I feel no one in politics is able to bring concrete evidence that video games are a problem, and I only hear this from Americans. Now I might be wrong, but here in England, I never hear about video games being a problem when violence happens. Usually we get the domestic stuff, knife crimes and the odd drug problem. We have one of the lowest gun crimes in the world, with only one school shooting in 1996 at Dunblane Primary School. After that, most guns were banned completely within a short period of time, and video games were never even touched upon, because we don't value guns over lives. Australia had a similar problem and it resolved the same way. However, America meets a scapegoat, so why not video games? Because it's easier than trying to fix these broken laws. How many people need to die before you realise the problem was allowing guns to be sold with little effort? What's funny is that people actually tried to sue video game publishers after said atrocities, only to fail because there was no evidence put forward. Even though Doom was involved with the Columbine shooting, so was all the bullying and even the Clockwork Orange. Video games are a small factor, not the overall problem. So video games are not to blame. It's the fools behind the desks looking to protect these broken laws who will profit, the parents who can't be bothered to look up the age rating on the packet, the government who fears change in society. Video games are not to blame. It's people who want to pin it on media that actually helps people, but fear it because a politician said it was a problem and used a violent act like a shooting to only persuade them further. We have people who have studied the effects of video games and we have stopped blaming them after the 2000s ended. Stop hiding behind this scapegoat and prevent violence by fixing the overall problem. The education system is broken, America has more gun shops than bloody McDonald's, and parents are misguided by politicians who lie for profit. We are living in a society where politicians are lying and blaming other sources for atrocities that occur. It needs to stop before too many people are killed by the system. In 10 years, video games won't be blamed anymore. But the next media type that so happens to scare people will. I think VR might be the next media thing to scare people. We'll have to see. Who knows what could happen in 10 years.